Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how to recreate this button effect where when you hover on the button you have some sort of gradient appearing and disappearing, and we're going to make this second version where the different colors are actually moving at a random speed, so it gives this nice very flowy effect. In this project, I'm not going to use a shader, I forgot to mention, pretty important. I'm only going to use the clip functionality that is available in Godot 4, which is really useful. So without further ado, let's get started. So I have a simple project in here with a control node as a base scene. You can put a gradient background if you want, just to make it a bit more pretty. So you can do a texture rect, put it in full size for the anchor. And under texture rect, we can create a gradient texture 2D. You don't have to create it to be the same width and height. You can make it smaller, and it will then just be scaled. It depends on how you want to do it. So let's fill linear, yes, and let's put something. So maybe slightly grayish, maybe like that. Okay, and then you can, of course, move the gradient to wherever you want. So maybe you make it brighter at the top and darker at the bottom. It's just to have something more interesting. Okay, so simply add a new button. This is what we're going to work with. And you can put, we are actually going to put that into a container, and you're going to see why. So actually, let's create a control just as an anchor. We're going to call that button control. I think can be great. Let's put the button as a child of that button control, and under the button we can simply put again take the full aspect of the parent. Okay, so now we can move the button control to be at the center of the screen. All right, and we can adapt the size. I hit Alt at the same time as I'm moving the handle. That way it's moving in mirror, which is really useful. So make the button size what you want. Okay, and this is good. So let's finish the tree setup. So you could use the label that is built in the node, the button node, but you will see that it's going to be a problem because we are going to display stuff inside of the button. So let's create another label. You can again put it as taking the full size. Note that I'm putting the label as a child of the button control, okay, and not the button. And in here you can write something. We'll come back to that. Of course, we'll come back to the setup just after. And finally, what we want is a panel. So the panel is going to be used to create the border. So again, we put it to full rect. We take the full aspect of the parent, and that's it. Okay, so now we have our control. We have all of the nodes that we need. What we can do right away is put the colors that we want inside of the button. So let me show you how we are going to do that. First of all, let's add a color rect to the button, okay? And again, take the full size. This time we put it as a child of the button. This is important because we are going to clip the colors to take only what is possible inside of the button. I want the button background to be white, so this is good. And I can rename that to be white. Now I add another child, which is going to be a control node. I'm going to call that colors, and this is where I'm going to put all of the other colors. You will see that in just a second. Again, take the full size. All right, you can actually copy the white and paste it over the colors, and in here you put whatever color you want. Actually, I'm just going to rename that to color rect. And in here you put really what the colors that you want to use in the project. So you play around with the colors, use whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. You put a bunch of them like that, and of course you change the color. With that you create the gradient that you want in the end product. So I think 3 or 4 colors might give you a good result. We are going to simply animate their position in time, and this is how we are going to have some sort of gradient effect. All right, So why am I not putting the white with the others? It's simple. The white is like the background of the button, and those colors in here, we're going to go through them with code, and we are going to move them from outside of the button and then inside of the button. You're going to see it's very simple. Okay, let's finish these setup. So for that, let's go over the panel right away. And under theme override style, we want to add a new style. So new style box flat. We can remove the background color. Okay, we don't want anything. We want to be alpha. And for the border, you can put a default border. So let's zoom in a bit if you need. You can put a default color for your border. Maybe let's keep it that way. And let's bump up the amount. So maybe 4 as a border. Maybe it's a bit too much actually. 3. Depending on what you want, it can be a bit more discreet. 2 can actually be good. And what we're going to do in the future is we are going to simply animate this color right there, okay? But we'll come back to that later on. Okay, so let me put that value to some, yeah, around there. It should be good. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is change the corner radius because I'm going to corner the button. So I think 12 could be enough. Yes, okay. Let's move on to the label. The label, it's simple. Horizontal alignment, let's put that to center. Vertical alignment, let's put that to center. Perfect. And under theme override, we are going to go under font size, and we can bump up this to, I don't know, 26. Yeah, write something. Okay. This is good. So the label is set up. Now let's go to the button. And under theme override, it's very simple. We are going to go again under style, and we create a new style box texture for the normal. Sorry, not that style box flat, the same as we did for the other one. The color in here doesn't really matter because we are not going to draw it. You will see in just a second. What is important actually is that we use the corner radius that we want. Okay, so 12 in this case, it's the same as the panel. So at the moment, as you can see, it's not showing, and this is simply because we have a color rect inside it, so it's messing around with all of that. But it's fine. Let's copy that. Let's duplicate it to the hover state because we also want a hover state. You can paste it in here, and I think it should be good, right? Yeah, okay. So now what we want to do, and it's a very simple trick, under the button, you can go under visibility, and under visibility, you have clip children. This is very neat feature, and you have two things. You have clip only and clip plus draw. So let me show you what it does. If you do clip plus draw, it's going to clip anything that is a child of that button. So for example, I can show you that much more clearly. If I put the colors to be actually bigger than the actual button, and I go under here and I do clip, as you can see, it's now clipping anything that is outside of that button, and it's respecting our outline right there, right? Our rounded corners, sorry. So this is clip only, and you have also clip plus draw, which is going to clip what is inside and is also going to draw anything that you are drawing with your button. So if you put any style or whatever, it can do that. I don't want that. I want clip only. I think this is perfectly fine. And perfect. We can go back to colors, and colors I'm just going to put back to take the full aspect ratio. Okay. I think this is good. So in here we have corner radius of 12. Okay. So now the technique is going to be pretty simple, actually. By default, what we are going to do is move all of those rectangles in here. We are going to move them. But to what value should we move them? Well, it's pretty simple. If you look at the transform at the moment, their position is 0, right? Their position is 0 because we are setting the anchor to take the full aspect, to take the full space of the parent. But if we take all of them and under layout transform, we put all of their positions to be the same as their size, it's going to move them. As you can see, it's moving them to their actual size. So what you have right now, what you have left is what we call the background. So the background is this, in this case, is just the white that we've defined earlier. Okay, so this is our background. So right away we can see something. The label is not seen anymore. So we can change that using the font color. Maybe put that to something else, or actually maybe even simpler. You can even change the visibility of that font to make it something grayish like that. Yeah. So now you have your button, and when we are going to animate, we are going to go through all of those rectangles here, and we are going to move their position from the size that we just set, and we are going to put them back to 0. So I think it is time to do that. So on the button, click attach a script, button.gd, and let's go. So I'm going to create two functions. I'm going to create a function called hover on. All right, it's going to put pass, and hover off. And then I can do void like that. Okay, can remove the process function. I don't need it. And I need to react to the hover. So on the button, I'm going to go under node, and I'm going to connect mouse entered to our button and mouse exited to our button. And of course, I'm going to call hover on and hover off in here. All right, perfect. So now I just need to create my hover effect. So for that, I'm going to go over there at the top of the script and create a tween. So why am I creating a tween right there? Because I want this tween object to be not local to the function, because you want to be able to stop the tween wherever it is. If you're putting your mouse on the hover, if you're hovering on the button and you're going away before the tween is actually finished, you want to be able to stop the tween that was making the hover appear, and you want to go to disappear. So it's important to have the same tween for both of those. Otherwise, you will end up in a weird situation where your hover on tween is starting the animation, but at the same time, you're launching another tween, which is trying to go the opposite direction, which is not going to be good. So under hover on, we are going to actually do that. So var, so we can check if the tween is actually something. So if tween and tween dot is running. If we already have a tween, we want to stop it. So we can call kill. If that's not the case, we can simply do create tween, and I'm going to set some easings by default. So I'm going to set ease in and out, okay, and set transition to cubic. I'm going to link below the tween cheat sheet if you want. It's a very handy little tool to look at what transitions and what easing will do to your tweens. So you can take a look at that to see what you want. The in and out and cubic will give us a very nice curve, a very nice S curve, which is very smooth. And this is what I want in this case. Okay, so the first thing that I can do is I will simply grab the reference. Okay, so hold, grab the color from here with the left click, and then simply when you're going to let it go on the script, hold Control, and it's giving you the reference to that node, colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of the child, okay? So for C in colors.getChildren, I'm getting, whoops, what am I doing? I'm getting all the children, come on, I can't type. I'm getting all of the children, and I'm going to create my tween on them. So I can do tween.tween interval, no, tween property, yes. I want to tween on the object C, which is children. And what do I want to tween? I want to tween its position in Y. I can take only the Y coordinate. I don't care about the X. So what should be the final value when it's hovering on? It should go back to 0, right? So we can simply put 0 in here. And what should be the duration? Probably not too long, 0.4. You want a button to react quite quickly when you enter it. You want usually an object to react quite quickly when you enter it. And then when you go out of it, it can go a bit slower because it doesn't need to react anymore. So you can go faster when you go in and slower when you go out. Okay, so we can do that. The problem with that at the moment is that those tweens are going to run one after the other, which is going to result in something a bit weird, but maybe we can already take a look at that. So if I launch the project and I put my mouse on, it doesn't react because I forgot something, which is pretty important. You can actually check it under, I can show you that. Quick tip, sorry, it's a mistake. Quick tip, if you don't know what control node is eating the your mouse or events like that, you can go under debugger, under MISC in here, and you will see what is being clicked. So as you can see, if I click, you can see that actually the click control is the panel, because the panel is on top of everything, right? You can see I have the panel on top, I have the label, I have a bunch of things. So actually I can take from white to panel, I can take all of them, and under the inspector, under mouse, I can go and ignore the mouse. And now if I relaunch, hopefully it's reacting. All right, so as you can see, it's only working in the hover on because I didn't do the other one, but it moved all of the control nodes to their final position, one after the other. So this is not what we want, though. This is not what we want. First of all, we can change that by putting parallel. But of course, if I relaunch that with parallel, it's going to move all of them at the same time. So I'm going to see only the last color, which is not super interesting. I think you might agree with that. So how can we do that? Well, we can simply move that amount. We can simply make this duration slightly bigger. At the moment, we don't have any index, so maybe what we can do is grab an index right there. Let's say index, we start at 0. And every time we're going to tween something, after that, we are going to make that index plus equal 1. And we are going to basically say for each control node, we are going to have a duration that is slightly bigger. So in here, we can start with 0.3 maybe and do plus rend f range. And we can add a bit of times, so 0.08 to maybe 0.15. And we can multiply that by I. So the more the last color rect is going to have a longer duration. Oops, I'm using index and not I in here. Okay, so now if we take a look at that, it should already be much better. All right, as you can see, so of course we don't have the opposite reaction, but it's doing what we want. Let's go. So now we can do the same thing for hover off, and we can simply start by duplicating the code, what we have in hover on, but we are going to go the opposite direction. So in this case, we are taking the children in order, and what we want to do in here is go the opposite direction, because when you appear, the first color rect should go first, but when you disappear, the last color rect should go first. So in here, we can change that code by doing for I in range, colors dot get child count -1. -1. We want to go until -1, and we want to decrease the range by -1 every time. So what this does is, don't be afraid of the -1 in here. The range will stop before reaching this, so it will stop at 0 actually. So now we can use the I in here to first of all get the children. So we can do var c is equal to colors, colors dot get child of I. We get the current child, so we can use it in here. Colors, all right. And then we can use I in here instead of the index. But this time we want to deduce the value, right? We don't want to add the values because we want the things to go slower and slower as we move on to them. And we also don't need this index anymore. We can remove it. So the code is slightly different. If you really want to, you can use for I in range in here also. That way the code is a bit similar. You can find the final code on GitHub, and the code is probably a bit slightly cleaner because I've cleaned it afterward. So before testing, the final thing that we need is to actually change the position in here. We don't want to go to 0, we want to go to the size, right? Remember, if we take a look at this, we are moving the color rect outside of the button. And how do we do that? We move it to its size. So simply go in here, and in here we can do c.size.y. We can take the y component. And if we launch the project, now what we have is we appear and we disappear. We appear and we release. And you can play around with the values in here. You can make them bigger, slower, whatever you want. You do you try a bunch of values in here. You can go a bit higher. Okay. To finalize this effect, I want to actually change stuff with the label and with the panel also. Okay. So I think it's a good idea to, for example, make the panel outline be a bit more visible. And we can also maybe change the size or the modulate of that text in here. Okay. So what I think we can do is export some variables. That way it's going to be easier to set up. We can say export var label color normal. Let's say it's going to be a color. We can duplicate that, say label color hover, and we can also duplicate 2 times, and I'm going to say instead of that I'm going to do border color, and border color I want to use normal and hover also. All right, so we can set those values. So label color normal, we can actually use that probably. Am I able to pick that color? Yes. And on hover, it's going to be pretty much the same, slightly darker, I guess. The border color normal, it's going to be a bit like the same. We start with that color, and then maybe we go to something a bit more dark like that. You can play around with the values. All right. Let's go back to the script, and I'm going to grab the reference. So I'm dragging the label, hitting Control before releasing. Same for the panel. And now we can add that to our hover on and hover off effects. So what we can simply do is tween in parallel also. We also want to do it at the same time, and we can tween the property. I want to tween the property of the label. The property is self-modulate. I think this is what I've changed. And I want to go, when we are hovering on, I want to go to label, color hover. And I want to do that probably in a bit more time. So like at least 0.35, maybe even 0.4. It depends on what you want exactly. You can duplicate that, and this time you can use panel instead. And on panel, it's a bit more complicated. You need to get the actual style. So what you need to do is we want to get that panel, and then we are going to play with the border. So to do that, you can do get on panel. You can do get theme override styles, and we have theme override styles panel right there. This is going to grab that. And instead of self-modulate, you are going to use border color. All right. And we use border color hover in 0.4. Again, perfect. You can duplicate those 2 lines and put them after the 4 inside of the hover off. And this time you can use, again, maybe 85 as a value for the time, 0.85. And you want the color, instead of being hover, you want to go back to normal, and in here the same, normal. All right. All right. So we simply tween in parallel. We simply tween the self-modulate of the label and the border color of the panel. And then we release it in hover off. And so finally, what we have is this. All right. Pretty cool. As you can see, I'm going to put it in big just for you. As you can see, the border becomes a bit darker and the text is also darker, and it goes back to something less pronounced when you release. Of course, the colors that I chose in here are not incredible, so you can change them something more, maybe that looks a bit better. You can go with, I can try to change the colors really quickly to have something, yeah, maybe a bit better. And the final value could be some sort of maybe bluish for the end of the, okay, let's try that. But you play around with the values, and all right. And as you can see, you have a cool little hover effect. You can do a bunch of other things if you want, but I think that's it for now. And you can find the code again on the GitHub, link in the description. What I really like about this effect is because we have a bit of randomness, it's never going to be exactly the same. The feeling is never going to be exactly the same, which I think is super cool. And as you can see, you don't need a shader. You don't need, if you're afraid of shaders, this is a very cool technique. You simply use the fact that a button can actually clip whatever is inside of it. A little change also, if you want, you can also play with the rotation. If you put the pivot offset at the middle of the rectangle, you could, when you are moving the color rects upward, you could also change their rotation to make it slightly more fun. But I will let you do it, and if you have a result and you want to share with us, please don't hesitate. If you like this, don't hesitate to subscribe and follow. And if you want to support me, I have a Patreon where you get access to stuff like these in advance and also exclusive stuff. Link in the description, patreon.com/MrElliptic. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.